Okay, I'd like to. We do a lot of talking about capitalism and our critique on it, and it doesn't mean that. And I think because it's something that warrants a lot of discussion.
Well, it's the fuel which drives our society, and so it does actually, and not a lot of people talk about it because it is the fuel that drives our society.
Yeah, and those who do talk about it, these people that are the people that are on the left describe them as right wing. People like the Jordan Petersons and the I don't know the new YouTube stars like the Stefan Molyneux and whatever, and these who are just like ardent capital, and don't get
And cult leaders.
well, I don't know too much about that guy. I know I've watched some Jordan Peterson, who I like very much. He's a
Jordan
very
Peterson
intelligent
is
man.
a smart person.
Except when he just
About some
unconditional
things.
support for capitalism. Yeah, then
Capitalism writes his paycheck.
don't get me wrong. The anti-capitalists that are social justice anti-capitalists are the biggest fucking idiots on the planet. So I am not an anti-capitalist and I am not a communist. And I don't want to live in a collective society because I've seen collective.
Well, just look at all the other human beings out there. Do you want to be in a collective
Sure.
with those schmucks?
Yeah, I mean, collective. Okay, but that doesn't mean that we are not able to take a swing at capitalism because it's the big bully on the block. So like communism doesn't even really exist. So since capitalism is what we have, that's what you critique, right? You don't have to.
You got to modify it. Don't tear it down completely. And you don't need to just start from year zero like Pol Pot style. You modify capitalism such that it can be working.
But here's some of the things I've been trying to work out my critique on capitalism, and I think I've it's because it's difficult. But I keep hearing that capitalism has lifted humanity out of poverty, which I don't know. First of all, it maybe has, okay, so people say, well, people are not toiling in the field for their food. Well, now they're sitting behind like call centers or in like dehumanizing
Sewing
like,
machines,
jobs
losing their eyesight,
yeah,
poring over
bullshit jobs
shoelaces.
Bullshit jobs, as the anthropologist David Graeber calls it, which I really love the concept.
Yeah.
It says like 50% of the jobs are bullshit, and it's true. But
Bureaucracy. Get rid of them all.
Yeah, I always said if there was a virus that came around and just like took care of like
We wouldn't miss them. That's the thing. Insurance salesmen. What?
white collar workers and stuff, and that's the reason why every time that the government threatens to shut down, they get like the Anderson Coopers and the Rachel Maddows to get on this their channel say, "Oh, this is the worst thing that could ever happen." The reason why is because when the government shuts down, nobody ever actually notices.
Exactly, when it shuts down for too long, people start to realize
we don't need them.
these people.
We don't need
it's the same
you.
thing as when the police force does a slowdown. It's like, well, wait.
They're terrified.
Why are you paying your tax
they're
again?
terrified of shutting the government down because, of course, because
people are just gonna be like, well, we don't need to start it back up, do we? This is wasting money.
Ask yourself. Last couple times when the government shut down, did you notice anything?
Power stayed on.
Pizza
phone
guy still-
service.
Yeah,
my computer still worked.
Sure, the pepperoni still on the
still
pizza.
got a sandwich.
Yeah, the bus driver came along. The water still came out of the tap. The
Even
electricity.
the trains were still running on
We don't
time.
need Washington. It's a waste of money.
In fact, we do better off without
Without
it.
them, I say just keep it shut off. I mean, just
Put them in a boat, send them out to sea.
we don't need them. But back to the critique on capitalism is that look. Everything happens in phases, and prior to the time when we industrialized, we didn't understand these kind of processes, and then along comes the development in metallurgy and the development in gears and machines. Suddenly, at the end of the 1700s, we had our first machines, right? And then, but these are a development of human. This kind of progress has its locus, has its origins, not in some kind of capitalist locus. It's coming from our. Everything gets tied back to our philosophical understanding of life. Everything goes back to the original philosophy, which is the thing that got us out of the mud, which changed us from being a species that clubbed each other over the head, and then so. Everything springs forward from that. So even innovation, both intellectual and physical and material, they all owe their existence to the wellspring of philosophy. And so if you think you're going to base a culture or a society on a business process, that's ridiculous. You base it on the original philosophy that is the life-giving substance of it all, right?
The problem is we've lost sight of our origins in the philosophical sort of elevating of humanity from the animals and from the mud and whatever. And so we forget that we owe something to this mode of thinking, and that there used to be something else that was just a sort of chaos and animalisticness. But because we've been for so many generations immersed in just let's get the building a better mousetrap or whatever, we don't realize that the motivation behind it all is now something that you can't even do, because you say you want to major in philosophy and people just laugh at you and say, oh, you're going to end up working at McDonald's your whole life. Well, it's we should reward philosophers, because without them we would be nowhere. We wouldn't have McDonald's, and well, arguably that's a good thing, but we wouldn't have anything else either. We would be clubbing each other over the head, maybe spearing a deer here and there for sustenance, but it's actually very important. And the fact that we don't value it at all, or we don't value other cultural touchstones like art and music and whatever that really separate us from the beasts, this is really absurd, because if we just lived in a world where everyone was pushing paper around, it would be an ugly world and we wouldn't want to live in it. So,
well, that's what we do live in.
Yeah, but once in a while you come across a person who's managed to buck the system and is doing a little bit of philosophy on the side in between pushing paper around that they have to do to pay rent. It's just disgusting that our priorities have gotten so lost in the shuffle.
It would be a much better world if our culture, if our society, it was based on cultural, humanitarian things like philosophy, like art, like song.
Ask 9 out of 10 people on the street, like, what do they value more? A musician, an artist, or an insurance salesman?
Yeah. Well.
Yet insurance salesmen are paid so much more than musicians and artists.
Yeah.
This is stupid.
Yeah, and
it doesn't make any
the
sense.
artists and the musicians who bring real joy to people's lives are marginalized.
They bring color. They bring, like, you can actually really feel an experience when you get involved with a song you really like, or you see a painting that moves you, or you read a poem that just brings up emotions. You're reading through insurance paperwork and you're just getting a headache and feeling like, oh, how am I getting ripped off by these people? But the insurance people have houses, and the musicians are living 10 to an apartment and still struggling to pay rent. This is not fair.
Yeah, the world would be a much better place, a much safer place, if philosophers were our leaders, not capitalists. And if capitalists didn't control our political process and own our politicians. That's what happens when wealth gets aggregated. Then they own and control our society. I don't want to live in a society that's built based on a business model. That's not the society. It should be based on philosophical ideas about what's right and wrong, and it's just
to have philosophers in leadership positions. These are people who are used to thinking, and that's what they do all day. And so thinkers, people thinking, solving problems. This is what we need in government. This is not people who just take checks and sit there and think, how can I best serve the person who just handed me this check? No. Those people are not used to thinking. They have one mode of problem solving, and that is get down on my knees and service my benefactors.
Yeah. And to play the devil's advocate here, about this idea of capitalism versus communism. And again, we're not communists, and I don't want to live right now in a communist world. But there is this little mathematical problem here. Consider of potentially unlimited human population expansion versus the very finite set of resources. So consider the Earth an apple, one apple. Right? Now you got one guy eating the apple. Well, now you got 4 guys eating the apple. You got 5. The bottom line is the apple is not going to last so long. So from a mathematical place, there's a little inevitable thing called you're going to have to share. And if you don't, then the only other option is you're going to have to mass slaughter or each person
that's what they're planning on doing.
Killing off each other.
That's what the plan is.
That's the only solution. Now,